every athlete, every person being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
EMI Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Oh, I'm just joking. I was doing my Calvin Mann themed imitation. So,
and you had the bass with it. I love it.
Good day, good people. This is your co-host, Heather Hetheru. Just filling in for Calvin for a few minutes as he finishes up some very important challenges and tasks that he needed to finish up. So I'm going to be moving us forward in this conversation today with our topic today being Boy Matters. And so we try to make that first Monday of the month a conversation around boys. And as we have ended our 14-week mentoring program with our boys, our future leaders, which are boys from 8 to 14, and our Emmy Elite, which are boys from 14 to 24. And so we just finished up a 14-week program with some amazing family, closing the program, and some amazing outcomes from our boys. And with us today are two of our lead mentors and coaches, because they do both, from our program. So I wanted to say hi to Dave. You there, Dave?
Yes, I'm here. How's it going?
He must didn't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me, Dave?
I hear you. You can hear me?
Okay.
Hello?
Can you hear me, Victor?
Yeah, I can hear you. He did
Okay,
answer
so you probably hear me, and I just don't hear you yet. But our engineer is working through whatever our difficulties might be.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't turn the volume back.
Oh, your mics are on now. Okay.
Yes.
You're hot. You're hot. You're hot. Well, welcome back, Dave. Dave is one of our co-hosts for the podcast too. He's been has been using his time in other spaces where he's more needed, I guess, over these couple of months, almost a year now, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah. I hope to get back. They changed my VA appointment, so hopefully they revamped their whole system. So hopefully I'll be back.
Okay, good. And Victor, in terms of your log day, being able to speak with us and be here with us today, we got the best of both mentors in the room.
All right.
So
I appreciate you. God bless.
Oh, look at you. I see you on the camera now. Do you see you? You look pretty laid back to me.
Meaning me?
Yeah, we can see you now.
Like I said, I'm just trying to give this headache a chill.
Right.
I'm trying to get that Advil working.
Well, thank you both for being here and having this conversation. I like to start off our conversations for our podcast around looking at things from a lens to frame our conversation so that we're all on the same page, and that the conversations that we're having is really helping other people who might be listening to us to apply some good information, to listen to some good information, and then give people things to think about. Because we really part of our growth and our development starts with the awareness, and it starts with new information. And so we try to make sure that we're sharing some new information, sharing some insight, and also our personal journey, because ultimately it's really how you live out these principles and practices that matter. And so as we're talking about Boy Matters today, I can only speak from a mother's perspective, a sister's perspective, a daughter's perspective. And since we have two men on the line, you can talk about your journey from boy to man. So that would be really interesting and exciting to hear. But I also want to start about talking with you all about our mentorship program. And so for those who don't know, that EMI stands for Encourage Me, I'm Young. And our mission is the restoration of family through seeding in the lives of boys and intervention and prevention activities. And so mentoring for us is both intervention and prevention. And it's really important, because if we don't get ahead of some of the challenges that our boys are facing, they fall into the space where we have to do intervention versus prevention. And so the seeds that we are sowing in our program are designed for prevention, so that they never have to go down some of those pathways or make some of those decisions that lead their lives to a different type of trajectory. And so I would like for maybe Dave, you and Victor can talk a little bit about if you can, how far back can you remember into your childhood? I'd like to ask that question first.
Victor, you go ahead.
How far back can you remember, Victor, into your childhood? What age? Do you remember kindergarten? Victor?
He froze.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Oh, well,
Okay.
it looks like he's trying to talk, but he's frozen.
I froze?
Yeah, Victor froze, yes.
No.
It might be your signal too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Can you
okay.
hear me?
We can hear you though.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. How far can you remember being in 5th grade? Do you remember 5th grade, Victor? Oh, we got to keep moving up to high school.
Okay.
Yeah, you're really breaking up now, Victor.
Can you hear me?
We hear you kind of fading in and out.
Yeah.
Can you remember high school? What it's like being a boy in high school?
Yeah, Dave may have to go.
Okay,
Maybe he may need to log in and log back.
You hear?
You hear that, Victor? Try logging out and then log back in.
Okay.
We'll ask Dave the question. Dave, how far back can you remember?
I remember pretty good. I can go all the way back to at least a little bit after kindergarten, because I remember very vividly my mother taking me there and not wanting to leave her side at that point, because my mother and my father didn't make it, and so we come to Detroit, and so I was with her where she went. So to leave my mother's side was a little difficult, but moving along the stages, I can remember doing a play at 6 years old. And I remember the song. To this day, I still remember a song called "I'm a Little Papa Doll, Poo Poo." I can't forget that thing.
You said, "I'm a little Papa Doll, Poo Poo."
Papa Doll, Poo Poo. I can't. I was like, who do that to a boy? But
Dave, I just need to see you perform that one time.
Yeah, I need to see me too. I was cracking up. And then I remember we were right on the bus, and I remember the cobblestone roads, and I remember telling her I wanted to be a bus driver because I liked the steering wheel. It was big and had this, I don't know, the color was just amazing. But and then I remember entering we got burned out of the '67 riots. I was 9 years old. I remember being left up in the house, and I had a cat. And the cat left me. And at that point, I didn't like cats. I didn't like cats until probably last 20 years. So I'm up there now.
Wow.
So that had an impact on me, and it was devastating because I was only one in the house, and my uncle came and rescued me, and because I would have burned in the house.
Oh, so you mean your house was literally on fire?
Yeah, our house was on fire. Yeah,
Wow.
and
And this was
he
during the
passed
riots.
on early in his life. This is during the riot,
Okay.
and then I remember living with my cousins because at that point we was homeless, and all of those changes as a kid went through with them. I know Calvin sing, but I used to sing even early on. My parents would pay me to sing because I sounded more like an adult than a child, and my cousins didn't like me, so that was always a fight. And then I remember moving to the West Side where my parents is at, and so I was 10 then, 68. And my parents had a house built, not because they were rich, it's just the way it played out. Right. And I remember the kids tearing our house up because it was new and jealous. Oh, it was terrible.
Wow.
And so,
you mean like when you talk about kids, you talking about like cousins, your family?
My peers. At that point,
neighbors?
We left my cousins and moved to the West Side.
Okay.
So now these are my peers, and other kids. And then I remember going to school. Now, I didn't say this as a little kid. I got picked. Now, I could not for the life of me understand why kids would pick on me because I didn't bother nobody. So I was fighting a lot. And my mother actually believed that I was causing these fights. And I said, no, they're fighting me and I'm fighting back. And so, but anyway, she told me if I go to school, to this new school in Detroit, and I fight again, she was going to come to school. Back then, you could do that. She was going to hook me in front of the class, right, butt naked. Well, that scared the dickens out of me. Right. So, and my mother wasn't cruel. She just was very, stern. And she had real limits about, what you could do in school. Because I remember if I got a bad grade, I used to be, this is no joke. I would walk home from school talking to God. If the sun was shining, I'm not going to get a whooping. If the sun not shining, it's raining, I'm in trouble. That's the whole mindset of a kid.
Right, right.
But I remember going to school, and so I didn't pick on anything. I'm sorry. I didn't do anything but sit in my seat. Kids would pick on me all the time. Well, one particular time back then they had wood shop and metal shop. I made a horse because at that point my neighbor owned a ranch out in Belleville, so I was riding horses. So I was so fascinated with these horses that I made this horse out of wood and metal. Well, I'll never forget this kid. I'm telling you, memory is so clear. I'm 11 years old now. And this kid named Gregory Young, as long as I live, I'll never forget this guy. He took my horse. I was so excited. He was a bully, but I was so excited to show it to him. And we were in the gym and passing the way the school was set up. He took my horse and broke it. But that was all she wrote. I was into him so bad. I beat him so bad. He was bigger than me. I beat him so bad he started urinating on the wall. And then so my teacher named Mr. Vaughn, see how clear his memory is. My teacher named Mr. Vaughn came through. He was a Marine, just got out. And he said, what's going on here? I said, this man broke my horse and I'm not man. I said, this MF. I cussed back then. I said, this MF broke my horse and I'm trying to kill him. So now I'm discharged. I'm what they call it, expelled from school. I come home. I come in the door. I'm taking my clothes off, right? And my father happened to be home for lunch and said, what are you doing? I said, Mom said that if I fight another kid, she's going to come to school and whoop me butt naked. I told her she can whoop me here. She can whoop me in school, but ain't nobody going to put their hands on me ever again, and I'm just going to take it. And my dad and my mom said, boy, I told you about fight. I said, I didn't do anything. They've been picking at me since you told me this. They picked at me at the last school. I'm not taking it no more. So my father said, and I know it's not, what's the word they use now? Politically correct. But my father said, you're going to make a sissy out of my boy. Boy, you go back to that school and you whoop everybody you want to whoop. Anybody get in your way, you take them out. Oh, he should have never told me that. Right. I went back to school. And when they started picking on me, I was their worst nightmare. I did not win all the fights, but what I did was I put terror in people because I would walk in the classroom. If a guy picked on me and I walk in the classroom, I might take my book and hit him upside the head. And then I might get beat down, I might not. But after a few of those fights, then nobody pick at me again.
So
I remember.
Yeah, that's a great point. So bullying and that's one of boy matters. That is truly a boy matters. So how do you suggest, knowing the types of kids that you even dealt with at that time, what would you do different, or what would you suggest for a boy today?
Well, I would suggest first and foremost is that we always seek out the authority wherever environment we're in. We try to seek out the authority to resolve it the quote unquote legal, appropriate way. But I am of the nature that, what was happening by letting the kids bully on me, as my mother told me to do, basically, it caused me to lose my self-esteem. Begin to see myself different. I saw myself as weak. I didn't have the same confidence I had with my uncles, who taught me as a little boy, always stand up for yourself. Because at that time, my dad, what aroused was my grandfather and my uncles. But when I started letting these kids bully me, I was depressed most of the time. I was scared all the time. I hated 3 o'clock. It was so devastating. So I would tell them to seek out authority, but at the same time, don't lose your confidence in who you are, because there are kids who, and we had one of our young boys say, hurt people, and there are kids who are hurt early on in their life, and if they don't have the right type of environment and right encouragement as we do as mentors, what have you, then they'll start reevaluating themselves from a negative standpoint. So again, seek authority, but if you have to protect yourself, I'm a soldier. I'm a true believer. Self-preservation is not selfishness; it's preserving your existence.
Right.
So
go ahead.
So I think it's so important that we recognize, as we build our children, we teach them how to understand the importance and the difference between selfishness and self-preservation. But we also teach them how to be accountable, responsible. Take all the most appropriate steps you can to handle the situation. Seek out your teacher, seek out your counselor, seek out principal, But if all said and done and you have to defend yourself, you have to defend yourself. Now, that's just my philosophy.
So the kids today, how do we help them sort through that, and how far you go in terms of defending yourself? Because now there's a lot of gun violence. There's a lot of, I know especially when you had that situation when the bully broke your horse, and you were saying like you wanted to kill him. So now that thought and that thinking, now our kids are actually trying to really kill somebody, like taking a gun or really doing serious bodily injury.
Well, the reason why.
How do we navigate those waters? Victor, I know you're back, so maybe you can chime into this question too. Calvin is going to chime in. But let me start with Dave, especially having been in the military and having to use lethal force if you needed to in that situation.
Well, one of the things about being in the military, engaging in an activity that's going to be life-threatening, whether you're protecting or being defensive, there is a check and balance in that. And the rules of engagement tells us we can't respond unless we saw them, almost the old saying, see the whites of their eyes. But at the same time, you can't really necessarily see the whites of the eyes. So sometimes you have to follow through. So with that being said, we teach defense in the military. We teach how to be offensive in the military. And so again, if you can run, you run. As I told my son the other day, a week ago we had this conversation. He felt I should have responded in a situation that should have worked in my favor, but I assessed it. But as a kid, you can't think that far ahead.
Right.
So we teach them early on the right things to do. As I said earlier, you seek out the appropriate help as possible. And I know that life is more threatening because I had kids even back in the day pull pistols on me, and I remember a couple times running and a couple times stood up. But at the end of the day, you still have to protect yourself. So I'm not telling children to go out there and get your weapon, do these things. I don't even carry a pistol, and I took the test for the CCW. But at the same time, you have to use a certain level of wisdom to preserve you. You can't run scared in life. So we teach our boys all the most appropriate steps to take. Amen. Again, best way, if you can run. But if you can't run, you got to stand up. No one's going to stop death. That's a reality. but you don't engage to try to cause death yourself.
Right. All right. Calvin, you had something that you wanted to
I
share?
can wait. Go ahead, Victor.
Right.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would have ran that a lot of times. You know, Dave. It got to points where I just got so frustrated because I got embarrassed in front of the bully or, that, and I just stood my ground. And I'm like you. Sometimes I won some, sometimes I lost some, but you can't fight the world, man. I don't know. I was reckless. I had no focus. I had no male authority to tell me otherwise. So basically, I took it on my own hands to either win that fight or run.
So, and all of that's understanding because you grew up. Hey Vic, you grew up like pretty much all three of us grew up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, but today's kid is acting off of DNA. See, what were your thoughts is now their actions.
Right.
So people who thought about it at the time that we went through, produced it in the seed, now they're taking action.
Mm-hmm.
So, say that again, Vic.
And it's more violent now, like Heather said. Now everybody's got to grab a pistol, or and that mentality right there. As soon as you squeeze that trigger, brother, it's over for you and somebody else. And it's so sad.
And so then, what's training you to respond that way? Right, and then when you get into what's training you to respond that way, right, you got to get all the way back to the basics. Our young men, Hispanic males and black males, use firearm more than anybody in the world.
Than anybody else, right? That is a fact.
In the world, right? I don't know if the statistic has changed, right? So this is included in that. We are also the most fatherless. So,
that is another fact.
So the impact of that experience then leads to more emotional training. Right? Which when what we call boys matter is when they come into our arena, those are the things we take down. Boys matter because we're able to guide them.
Amen.
Show them, give them different tools that a father
and show them structure, brother. I love that fact. Amen. Amen. Amen.
That a father brings. This is why we have you all as mentors, because it takes 12 mentors to equal one father.
Right.
And so what we have done for, I'll say, the last 35, 40 years, we have accepted a culture of disorder, right? And that kind of leads to retaliation, emotions. That kind of leads to, fed up mass shootings, emotions, right? That kind of leads to drive-by shootings, emotions.
Right.
That kind of leads to stabbings in school, emotions. That kind of leads to fights inside of restaurants over food that was purchased and misconduct, emotions.
Right.
So essentially, as I was sharing with someone the other day, this is not a knock. This is a job and an opportunity for us men who are balanced, right? That we have to step in to navigate our young men so they can find their way.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
So I want to share one of my bullet points here. It's referring to father hunger. Have you guys heard about that before?
Yes.
Father hunger. It says father hunger often affects boys age 1 and 2 whose fathers are suddenly and permanently absent. Sleep disturbances, such as trouble falling asleep, nightmares, and night terrors, frequently begin with 1 to 3 months after the father leaves home. And then it goes into the types of challenges that boys have, and that lack of touch by a father figure. And so I think that it's worth having the conversation about how important affection is to children, to adults, how effective that is for everybody to have some level of somebody to care and using our sensory experiences. And I'm not talking about a sexually oriented touch. I'm talking about the fact that it is a basic need to be touched. That's why you've seen all of these studies that talk about babies who are separated from their parents, who have nobody who touched them. They literally wither and die for lack of touch, just from not being held. Not being held is enough to kill a baby. And so if it can kill a child, the same thing can happen for us as an adult. What you might do and the mindset that it can shift you into from the lack of touch, just a lack of affection. So I think it's really important, and I love that in the program that you guys, pat the boys on the back, you hug them, you give them high five, you grab them. And some of them may never have that experience to be touched positively.
Amen.
And affirmingly by men, by who are fathers. And I think that's another one of the values that you guys bring, being fathers, but also understanding what it was like to be in their shoes. Now, we're not talking about generationally, but just as a male, what it's like to be in those shoes, what it's like to engage the bully, what it's like, to have to fight your way through. And some kids know about that, some kids don't know about that.
Mercy.
And so I think the one of the values that you guys bring to being a mentor is having that understanding for both sides. It's not that you wanted to fight; it's that you were put into a corner where you had to fight. And then now what do you do with that? How do you avoid being backed up into that corner? And then how do you then defend yourself and what it means to defend yourself? So if you lose, you're not trying to go back out and find somebody, hunt them down and shoot their house up and anybody around them. There's something desperately missing in that equation about how you're able to defend yourself and your level of self-esteem that you reclaim when you stand up for yourself. So I would like for you guys to talk a little bit about that. But Calvin, you had something you wanted to add?
So in what has been said, because it was busy booking, but in this process, we often talk about Dave, Victor. We often talk about, right? One of the things I often ask is what happens, right? And we just about can tell it. And then when you hear the word father hunger, that occurs in the womb, right? Because suddenly the voice is absent. See, what happens is when there is not a joint effort to the child, the body, the child, even in some cases when the father's not present, it chemically throws her body off. So in that process, when we talk about infant mortality, the cities with the highest infant mortality is connected to the cities with the highest single family households. So when the child comes out, does not hear the voice, the girl, the daughter, she hears the voice, she's getting all of the nutrients. The boy is not. So the boy, right, is really in deficit. Now, when you think about it, you can close your eyes and evaluate across the board our last couple of sessions, right? And when you look in on the boys, we can see who's going to make the greatest strides within the program, within our conversation. We know the ones that still got a little ways to go, as we talked about at the closing ceremony, because of the environment. We know that. We know that if you're in this environment, that environment, but I'm curious as to, in that case, Victor, I'm curious to, like, some of the things that you've seen and recognized on the good side from your input.
Okay. Well, I tell you, this is a huge subject for me because the simple fact of the absentee of my father. I mean, I carry the man's. My mom tells me that, hey, he looks like him a little more, and I feel it in some of the boys to where you can tell that the male figure is not around at all or very little, because of the way they present themselves sometimes, And they're ball together, Cal, and at best junior high. That 7th and 8th grade seasons, man, there was not one male figure on my side that ever came to see me play ball, and that hurt, as a little guy, wanting to have a male figure to, just pat me on or whatever. I never got that, and my mom, she was there, but she wasn't there, and it's just rough when the father is absent,
right?
Because especially a young male. I hope they lose y'all.
Yeah, you good?
Hello.
Yeah, we're here, Victor.
I'm sorry, brother. This signal is really bad. I hope you heard some of that.
Yeah, we
Man,
heard
it's always
some.
the signal, but. Okay. But, in that sense, I kind of look at some of the guys there, and I see like I don't want to name, I'll just name the letter J, like he's a true fact of how I was back then,
Right.
Searching for that male figure, for that male acceptance, amen.
Right.
And I never got that, and that was rough for me, that was hard for me. So, Cal, that's where it got to the point where me and my brother were like, okay, well, you know what? My mom is soft as butter. We're going to do this way, and we're going to fight the world, and then we'll figure it out afterwards. It's just a terrible mentality. I know this,
Right.
And I paid the price for it later on in my life. Amen?
Yeah. Dave?
I think it's... well, I maybe I take a different position. When I was a kid, take a different position from when I was a kid. I understood that the role of the father wasn't necessarily being with me 24/7, but I understood the role of men being in my life who had different roles: uncles, grandparents, neighbors, people in the neighborhood, if you will. They all contribute to my life, so that made a big difference. And as I look at our boys, every time we sit in that group, I see myself at some point in their display of behavior. Sometimes silly, sometimes inappropriate, sometimes, can't be still. I saw a lot of me in them, but I understood the developmental process. The difference is with me and them is that we did have a village. May not be always the most accurate village, but we had a village that taught us a lot. So what you couldn't get from your father directly, I got from the other people. I could go down the street and sit down with somebody's father. I could talk to the man who was teaching me how to ride a horse. I could talk to my teachers because we had more men back then. Uh, there wasn't a lot of, when I think back, it wasn't a lot of women who were the teachers when I was growing up. And maybe it was just the luck of the draw. But I saw more men, and I can remember those teachers and the words they said. So, but all of it contributed to my growth. And then maybe in my case, I might have grew up too fast because I was around mostly adults. I wasn't around a lot of kids my age for the most part, outside of going to school. But once I got home, I had all these adult people around me. And again, my mother was young when she had me, so that made a big difference. So, but I really believe that as men, you definitely have to do one thing. We have to spend time with our boys. And again, teach them that no one is going to be with you 24/7, but their words can be with you 24/7. That's what I always like to say. You will hear my voice again. And so I can remember hanging out with Pop Winan for years. He was our barber. He was our neighborhood baseball coach. And I remember sitting with him every day, literally every day after I got to clean the barbershop. And he would teach me things, you know. So the male presence is important. Touch, you know, men touch different than women. And it means something different. But they're putting the arm around you when you didn't make the shot, you know, or you know, actually gesturing like we're going to box or whatever. You know, it was always that presence. And that present made a difference. But we have to teach our boys about the present. We can look at our boys and how they sit. See, by me having men around me, they would say, hey, you don't sit like that. That's the way a girl sits. So you don't know. Your body just doing what your body do. But somebody was there to tell me this is appropriate or not. So at least in the environment we were growing up here. So touch is important, but quality time spent, not the quantity of time, because you know you have a father on you 24/7. He cuss you out all day long. What good is that?
Right. So that's the point, right? For looking at it from a standpoint how important and valuable fathers, father figures, stepfathers, uncles, right, are healthy though. Right? Healthy. We have to have in this construct, we have to have healthy fathers. Right? Because it's important for us to understand that a healthy father understands his ministry. An unhealthy father tends to look at things from a completely different mindset, and that in itself is an issue, right?
Yes, it is.
Because you got to look at it from the standpoint, right? You got to look at it from the standpoint. We come in the door as fathers, right? And you look at a kid, I look at a kid, we look at the kid and we say, okay, this kid needs this. We start providing and guiding these things to these young men, right? To prepare them, right, for their opportunities that's in front of them. You see, because if you don't prepare them for the opportunity, right, then you gotta understand that that's preparing them for the system.
Yeah.
So it's either we prepare them for opportunity, or they'll be prepared for the system. And the system is, to go back to what she was saying about the violence and the guns and what we see. It's in our environments, right? Just imagine this, right? When I was growing up, right, Dave, you was growing up, Victor, you was growing up, one of the first things they taught you to do was what? Ball your fist.
Yeah. Yep.
That's one of the very first things you're taught.
That was automatic, right.
Ball your fist.
Yep.
Right? Because you're not going to, right, back then it was like you said, Dad, they say you're not going to be no punk. Right? So we began to prepare.
But see, and that was the mentality, brother. You know, that was it. You're not going to be a punk, and you're right. You balled up that fist, and you did the best you could.
Right. But that That is where we failed at. See, because that is the beginning to teaching of the violence that is perpetuated. Right? I know one thing. I know how to respond when you make me feel a certain way. Domestic violence. You make me feel a certain way. I know how to respond. That's innate in the childhood, right? You make me feel a certain way. I know how to talk to you to get you to respond. You see? So we use our words, and then there's action. And like when you see this, this is something that is on daily. When Cam was in middle school, the kids, just to come out of middle school, because we've taken away so many things, when they come out and the school is over with, they're literally outside the school pretending to fight.
Wow.
Cam was not even in that. He walked right by that. He walked right by that. He never seen him involve himself in that. Kids who understood literally walked by that. But a bunch of the kids, when they get off the bus, they pretend like they arguing. They pretend like they fighting, right? You got to get them to stop. And when you stop them, they ready to really fight.
Yeah.
So that then
adrenaline is going right through the roof, right?
Right. So then let me put this T-shirt on you. You can go watch the movie Scarface. I'm gonna put this death on you.
Mercy.
Right?
Mercy.
Then let me hand you this violent video game. I'm gonna hand that to you too. Then let me hand you some adult decisions. You can take that one with you too. And not one time have you heard me say, let me hand you this book. Let me hand you this knowledge. So what happens then is now everything is broke down.